Listen and subscribe to The Table of Truth on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. All right, let me start this up. Do my little stretches. Welcome, everybody, to The Table of Truth. This is your man, Cam, and we are back for a Blerdlines episode talking things geeky, comics, TV, film. With me is
Josh, aka I just found out the DC universe is no longer a thing literally as we started recording, and I'm really sad now.
and our other guest.
It's D. I'm back. I'm ready to chat it up with you guys once again. That's in discouraging news, but you know, HBO, it lives in HBO Max, I guess.
Yeah. I think so.
Wait, so what just happened? What's going on now?
So literally, as you hit record, I clicked on just to have something in the background muted. I was like, let me just pop on DC Universe and click on the first thing that shows up. And so the message reads, up and away. Did you hear DC Universe is evolving to become DC Universe Infinite? Unfortunately, that means that we will no longer support this app. Check out DCUniverseinfinite.com to learn more.
And the Infinite is basically just like a place for all of it. You probably sign up for it, you just get free access to DC's comics. To their,
I hope the bankers don't charge me.
Comic archive.
That's crazy, dude. I mean, it's funny because the DC app was actually pretty good.
I liked it.
I liked it.
Pretty solid.
Yeah, I was surprised. They, at my time at Marvel, they were always working on their Marvel app, and then they just didn't. The Marvel app was great for comics, but that's it. Like everything else was very just ad hoc. You didn't really figure out what they're going to do with it. And then when the DC launched their app, like that was actually really dope. Like you can watch cartoons, you can watch movie stuff, you can access comics and all that kind of stuff. So I thought in general, I was like, dude, this is a really good launch of their app and how they did it. And I think that I was actually surprised. Like, and then as they started to roll out like original content and stuff like that too, it was just like, yo, they actually were trying to make this have some type of longevity. But then now that the HBO Max happened, the freaking layoffs, and I think it's consolidating everything. It's like I knew it was only a matter of time before they freaking folded the app.
I mean, what's funny is me, Cliff, and my cousin went to the premiere for Titans that year the year that they would drop in DC Universe. And so I went like in my Marvel t-shirt. I was ready to like talk trash. I was talking trash from the time we walked through the door. Because I was like, this is going to be garbage. And the best it will be is more Arrowverse level stuff. And so within the first 5 minutes, I was zipping up my jacket. And I was like, oh, we won't be talking trash today. This is kind of legit.
They put some, I was oddly impressed, man. They did like Titans was good. You know, I'm a big fan of Young Justice, and that shit was fire.
Oh,
and so like you know what it was is they put the necessary attention and the right people in place to make it like something. So like that's what made it dope. You know, that's what made it like. You could tell that they actually were like, this wasn't just like some side project. They're like, no, we're actually going to really, really do this. And so that's what I appreciated, because I was like, yo, Young Justice was top notch. Teen Titans was definitely completely different than Arrowverse type stuff. And they set that tone right from the jump to let you know, like, no, this is not on network. This is on our own thing. We can do whatever we want. So I thought that was dope. So sad to see it go, man. But we are here for a reason. Lovecraft Country ended. We wrapped. We finally got to our zenith, the finale of it. And we did the first 3 episodes review. It ended, and the people was like, yo, don't forget to do a wrap up so you can hear your guys' thoughts. and then something called the election happened and other life stuff happened, so we had to kind of push it off a little bit.
What is that? Did someone win something?
Yeah, supposedly some old white dude won. So, it's normal stuff in America.
Usually how that goes. Yeah. Okay.
But we wanted to come back together, chit chat about Lovecraft Country. the first thing I would say is, fellas, what's your overall reaction to Lovecraft Country as it wraps, like the finale, and like I would say overall reaction of the whole thing, but then also the finale.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
thought it was
cool.
trash. Now, I thought it was. It punched above its own weight class in a really big way overall. And I think not many people will want to hear this, especially Black people who were like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But there were flaws. It was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There were story foibles. There were little things that, that were sort of that sort of pulled it out of being a quote unquote perfect show. But the things that worked so incredibly well that it almost doesn't matter what the flaws were. It just sailed and went. It did.
Yeah.
Like I said, it punched above its weight class. It did better than I could. I was so satisfied with how it started. You could not have told me that it would have sustained and continued to build on the things that it did in the ways that it did. I don't know if I'm prepared to give it a 10 necessarily. I think I could comfortably give it an 8.5 or a 9. Now that I've had a little time to think about it, and the hoopla and the hype has died down some.
Well, which one? Which one will you give it? 8.5 or
8.5. I'm comfortable with the 8.5. I'm comfortable with the 8.5.
Okay, I thought you would have given it more, but okay.
No. I think when you and I talked, I was probably giving it a 9.
You were,
when we talked
yeah.
offline. I think I can back that off to an 8.5 comfortably. The foibles that, like I said, the flaws and foibles that it had were definitely flaws and foibles, and because we work in television, these things jump out at us a very specific way.
That's a good point. I think that's you're in the industry, so there's certain parts where like, and like, Dio talk about this too, but like, I think I was telling somebody I really enjoyed it because, like you said, it punches above its weight class, but it was like it came out with a bang and it kept that same energy the whole show.
It did.
And then when it worked, it was dope. When it didn't work, you're just like, oh, okay, well, at least you tried.
Right.
It didn't feel like too big of a fall off. Yeah.
And I think that, as a whole, I just really enjoyed it. And I think that was my biggest thing. Like, I just wanted to be entertained, and I liked it. And I didn't like, people were like, yo, I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm like, yeah, that's the fun part.
Yeah, absolutely. I think echoing what both of you guys said, I felt the same way. I think overall, I think that it was, I had no expectations going in for the story or for anything. And so when I saw it, I knew what the general premise was, and obviously very familiar with the figure of H.P. Lovecraft. But I didn't know what to expect from the story. So I was very surprised. I thought the cast did a great job from top to bottom. It was the visuals were amazing. The way that they were able to take all of these subgenres of horror and put them in each episode while telling a serialized story was very impressive. Like Josh pointed out, there was some flaws in the stories. I felt sometimes they did more than they needed to do, a little too much. They wasted some screen time, but for the most part, it was fun, man. It was, each episode was, I looked forward to it. It was, it was a ride. I think I landed on the 8.5, the 8.5 out of 9 as well, because the one thing that bothered me more than anything, and I docked it for it, was the anachronistic music. And for those who don't know what anachronistic means, it's simply music that don't belong in that time period. It's a period piece. There was great music at that period that I think for something that was trying to zero in on the history as a backdrop or leitmotif, you want to have that kind of spiritual connection, even if you do add a little modern sound to it. It's all in execution. So I thought they didn't really rise up to that, but overall, they nailed it.
You're saying a lot of big words right now, so I'm gonna take that as a form of disrespect.
I'm gonna fight you.
Well, I definitely have been accused of being disrespectful with the words that I say. So it won't be the first time, and I definitely know it ain't gonna be the last. So.
But no, yeah, you're right though. I think the like it bothered when it first happened. I think it was in the first episode. I was kind of like, huh? And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. But then when it started to be kind of a continuous theme, I was like, damn. And I get you because like I think we were talking about it before. Where like Westworld did a really good job of using modern music, but then doing a take on it that fit the narrative of what they were trying to sell. So like my girls, she knows tons of pop music and all that kind of stuff. So like when she's watching Westworld and then they have a pop song, but it's done in the realm of how Westworld is, right. Like in the score, she picked it out. She's like, oh, that's blah, 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 blah. And I was like, that's it. And that's exactly how. So it would have been a better challenge and almost a better for the audience member to hear, something that was modern but done in the style of that time period, so it fit.
Exactly.
And I think that would have actually made it even better because it kind of would give you something that you weren't really noticing for. But like when Letty's sisters are coming out and it's like a trap music beat and then like all these hi-hats are coming around and you're like, what is going on right here? This is
exactly. Now if that had been using to that, like you're saying example, if you had taken that and then maybe made it I don't know, I'm going to fail at the instrument at the time, but, maybe it's like jazz or something like that, or like just the guitar or something like that, but it's the same beat and melody. But, it's similar to use the Westworld example, when they ride up into the town and you start hearing that piano doing Painted Black, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's like...
Nope, exactly. And I think that's the part where like that, again, swinging for the fences. They're like, yo, this might work. And it's, it didn't really work, but that's dope. I mean, I'm glad, like my whole thing, someone said the same thing. Someone asked me about it. They're like, well, I don't know if I'm not really a horror fan. I'm like, I am not a horror fan at all. I don't watch any horror movies. I like the scariest movie I've ever watched in my entire life is Event Horizon. That shit is fucking nightmares.
Oh yeah, that's one.
But I don't watch horror. It's not my genre. Like I have read Lovecraft because it's like dope and it's kind of like the basis for a lot of the other stuff that I've read. But in general, like horror is not my genre of choice. But then with this, I thought they did a good balance of having that horror, having the time period piece, and then telling a different type of story than we're normally. So we're not just seeing your typical Black trauma. We're back in the South. Everyone's racist. Black people are struggling to survive. Blah blah blah. It was just like a good. Yeah, exactly. It was a good multi-layer. Even the way when they they used the Emmett Till's death, I thought that was super interesting because I didn't expect that. And then the way they used it was really well because there's a good part where Letty's sister, I'll keep forgetting her name, is talking to
Ruby. The character is Ruby.
Yeah, so the character of Ruby is talking to her quasi love interest, talking about Emmett Till and how she's sad and da 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 da, and then the white girl's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I mean, I guess like that sucks that you're sad, but what does that have to do with me? And that sentiment is so real because that could be a parallel with what's going on right now, where you have people that are, up in arms about Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, and the long list of people that have died at the hands of police. And there really are a lot of people that just literally don't give a fuck. Like it does not, if does not affect them. It doesn't. They don't have no empathy for it. They're just pretty apathetic. They're like, oh man, that sucks. That guy died, but they don't have no. They're not feeling how the Black people are feeling about these situations. And I thought that was telling because that character was kind of reminding her, the Ruby character, like, yo, we live in different worlds. So that I was like, I don't even think you really care. You just care because everyone else cares. But do you really care? And like, I was like, damn, that's some deep level shit where you got to think about it, where using, and I like that they didn't show Emmett Till at all. It was just a backdrop of it. So like they didn't show, the smell came because his body was, it was all rotting and that. So they talked about that, but they didn't show it. And that actually made it, I think, heavier because then it was like, oh man, this is in the time of when this happened. Yeah. And
it's in the middle
this little
of
girl, in the middle of it. And so that wasn't the story. The story, that was just the backdrop. The story was the little girl was about to get accosted by the police and, all these other things going on. So
and it was her
I like how
friend,
they.
and it was from her perspective, and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So yeah, they played that well, and to add to your the earlier point you were making about just the genre of horror is that this is they use the things that in because I'm a big fan, and obviously same with Lovecraft and read that and Stephen King, and but the best of that genre is usually the stuff that focuses on real human terror and dials it up, you know, to 100%. It's not about the blood and guts and the torture porn and all that stuff that you see common in American horror. It's more about, again, the comment that the Christina character made to Ruby. That's dialing up that social so the psychology behind that privileged mind. That's
Mm-hmm.
making it even more terrifying to have it even in the middle when Emmett Till's body is not but 100 less than 100 feet away. She would say something like that and
Yep.
express that
Mhm.
sentiment. So it's those kinds of things that I think it did so well in not just having it be a monster around the corner or something like that, as much as it is really focusing on the tension that comes from these real human horrors in the
Yeah.
way we think and behave.
Yeah, I think, and so now we'll talk about, we are singing the praises and adding the little negs, but it was interesting because one of my friends, their comment was like, "Yo, this show is mad inclusive, almost to a fault." And then I read a good article about, I shouldn't say good, it was an interesting article about the indigenous character that was that they had, where she was a hermaphrodite, and the character was kind of big in one episode, and then the next up at the end of it they kind of just tosses away or whatever.
Yeah,
And it was just basically saying, oh, Lovecraft Country like fails its indigenous people, da 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 da. And I thought it was interesting because this is a kind of the swing for the fences thing, where it's like, okay, they added so much types of different, I would say, types of characters in it, so that, but then the characters are still, the focus of it. Like the indigenous character was part of the story, not the main story, so it kind of makes sense for them not to focus on this specific character.
yeah,
And even with the reveal, of his father, and his father's being gay and being a gay black man at that time of era, and having his beard as his mom, it might not be his mom, like, it's all these different things. And so they're kind of saying, um, the trope of, there's always a gay character, and then there's a gay character that dies, that inspires the next character to do better, blah 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 blah. And even the way that was handled was actually, to me, better than what I've seen in other stuff. And I thought it was
Mhm.
super interesting, of showing that dichotomy of, like, this is like, quote unquote, the strong black male that was harder on his son because he didn't want his son to be like him, who was a gay person and had to hide his feelings and that kind of stuff. So I thought the layers that they kind of showed, and by the end of the show, you see that Tick actually respects his father a lot better now, where he went from, I hate this dude, to this dude's a liar, to like, oh, okay,
yeah,
I see what you just went. Oh, okay, okay.
But you were
I still
dealing with
hate him,
things, right?
but I'm starting to at least respect him for the choices that he made. Blah blah. So you see
yeah.
that character arc and that flow.
Yeah, it's also a different depiction of that relationship between black men. When you look at Montrose and the uncle, the
Mm-hmm.
relationship between black men and women, and that whole triumvirate, and that the three of them understood each other and they loved each other despite all of the situation. The mother knew that Montrose was gay. I forget the mom's character's name, but she knew that he was gay, and George knew, that's the uncle's name, and that they were all and just like Montrose knew that George and uh, Tick's mother were together, and there was no secret amongst the three. It was just a different depiction of that, of a different kind of love and relationship, uh, and I think you had to see that it was born out of struggle and pain to really
Hmm.
understand it in the end. why it was so important, because all three of them in the end were Tick's parents. He had in the end two fathers, and
that's true.
you
That's
know,
very
and
true.
actually two mothers. You know, if you think about Hippolyta and her role in Tick's life, so
Right.
it also speaks largely also to a general aesthetic or theme that you sometimes see more prevalent in Black focus stories, which is the true idea of the village raising the child, and multiple people being having you know, you have your parents, but then you have others who are closely, even though they're aunts and uncles, but they're very much close to you as a parent to a child.
Yeah, nah, that was, and I think that the that depiction was actually really, really dope. And I think the dynamic as well kind of played out. And I think it was interesting to kind of see all those different things. And then also too, you know, I thought they did a great job of making sure the women in the show weren't just set pieces. Like each
Yes,
one
yeah,
was,
yeah,
you know, was multi-layered, ups and downs, goods and bads, made
yes,
mistakes, was a heroine, was weak. You know, they had different layers. Like I thought that was really dope because, you know, a lot of times, you know, we get the stereotypes of the sassy Black woman or the strong Black woman or the broken one or whatever. But
Which
each
is
woman is
present.
there with this. Mm-hmm.
But like you
And
say,
each
each
woman
woman
there
has
was
go ahead, sorry, finish.
yeah, I guess to say, like, yeah, each woman had a specific reason to be into the narrative. They weren't just there as set pieces. And I thought they did a good job of, even when with Kimio too, when she was in it, and I think that whole narrative is another thing, but like even her story too, like that had different layers. So it was like there was not really women characters weren't just, you know, set pieces in the thing. They all had a reason to be there. They helped advance the narrative. You know, Tick is the quote unquote hero of the story, but he would be nothing without everyone around him. And I think that that part was dope. Even if an episode didn't involve him, you know, he was still part of the narrative to help push it forward. But in like they also just like let you know that, yo, everyone that's in this story is not in it for just no reason. Like they all have a meaning to be in there.
Yeah,
agreed. And they kind of move. Each one of them moves the narrative forward. And I think doubling back to something that you mentioned about Montrose, I think this is probably, and this is something that I'm going to out a conversation that the three that we regularly have amongst us. It was cool to see a gay character that wasn't hyper forced. So this is just something that we talk about on occasion. Like there's the gay character pops up and they're doing what they're doing. They meet a man or, you know, if it's a woman, they meet a woman, and it's just this weird energy about it. And it's just so forced and so contrived the way that the relationship unfolds. Whereas Montrose, and I'm not saying that it has to be traumatic every time, because Montrose definitely had some things going on that he had to work out. But it wasn't aside from the bit in the club, and even that wasn't necessarily forced. I'm a DJ. I've played in gay clubs, so I know what that world, from at least from the outside in, I've seen what that world looks like. I can imagine that was what gay parties were like in the 60s. But that said, for the most part, it wasn't this. It was just a man who had a relationship with another man. Like it wasn't this forced thing where all these extra bells and whistles and elements were necessary to make it happen and to make it sort of stick and to make it organic in your mind that this is what was happening and this is the orientation of this individual. That to me, I didn't realize that would be as a straight man who, you know, who isn't really, you know, isn't directly impacted by those sorts of things. I didn't realize how refreshing that would be to see until I actually saw it, until it actually unfolded in the episode.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you on that. I think because you don't really think about his sexuality until that episode where I mean, there was that one character that kind of hinted at it.
It was basically outing them. Yeah, that was the whole thing. When I noticed that.
Tick. Yeah. But beyond that, there was no, Montrose himself gave no evidence of, you know, whatever that he was homosexual or interested in men until you get to the moment where it's revealed that he's in fact homosexual.
Yeah.
So that I think lends a lot of credence to what you're saying, Josh, about the way they handle the gay man in the story as they reveal it as being both a part of his trauma and the trauma that he inflicted on his son as well. That sort of and also just drawing attention to the bigger thing, which is the trauma of the past and how that follows one from that moment on. That trauma affected Montrose and every aspect of his life, and then he imprinted that onto his son um, in a way that became almost destructive. But you know, his son was over there overseas popping people in the head. But
Yeah, yeah, he had to work for that. But
you
yeah,
know,
and we were saying that too because I watch tons of Netflix shows, original shows, and one of the things that I saw kept popping up was the gay black man sidekick, and it was like something that was like starting to pop up in a lot of the shows, and then but every time it was handled, you're right, it was kind of sloppily or very heavy-handed or whatever. And this one was like they actually gave the humanity of it, and I thought they did a really good job with that because that's something that the black man's conspiracies, like, oh, they're trying to make all the black men gay, blah 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 blah. Like, no, man, that's not what
that's
they're
not a
doing.
thing.
They're just you're showing the totality of all peoples, and
Right.
There's black gay people. They've been here just as long as the white gay people, so that's part of it. We all know when we go to church and we always see the choir director. We're like,
I think the beauty of it was he wasn't like with anything else. Black people aren't a monolith, white people aren't a monolith, gay people aren't a monolith, and so he didn't have to be the feminine, striking, high pitched voice, girl, let me tell you, like he just it really was just a man who fell in love who fell in love with this other man, and that's really all it boiled down to. It doesn't make him
that was
it doesn't make it mean that he has to be one thing or another or anything else. Like he's still a man, and I feel like that gets overlooked in a lot of less so these days, but I feel like in the grand scheme of storytelling, I feel like that gets overlooked a great deal. Like, it's not a monolith, and everybody who every man who's gay is not the one way.
Yeah, and then it's funny because I remember when when Karamo from he was in Real World first.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was in he's in the part of the Fab Five now on Netflix, and he looked like a regular ass nigga. I was talking to this dude from Oakland. He was like, "Yo, I was watching Real World, and this dude started kissing guys, and I was like, whoa, what the hell?" But he was so shocked, but he was invested in the show and the character of him that it wasn't like it was a bad thing. He was just like, "Whoa, I didn't see that coming." And I was like, "Now, how do you feel about it?" He's like, "No, it's all good. I just like, oh shit, okay, word, okay, let's keep it moving." But it was the prototype or the stereotype of the gay person on film, definitely Will and Grace, Jack, and that kind of stuff kind of helped propagate that. And then also, how they, all the memes now and the gifs and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
Showing a quote unquote regular person, as a gay person, just like everyone else, that helps that narrative too, where it's just kind of like, yo, man, it's not like this is an aberration. It's not like this is like weird or quote unquote gross. It's like, this is a thing. It happens with everything else. And if you treat it like that, that adds to the point of not being a special thing. And I think that they did a good job, to me anyways. And then I know there's a couple other articles that are kind of saying there's aspects of it that the gay community didn't enjoy or anything like that. But as like a heterosexual male watching it, it wasn't like anything where I was just kind of like, oh, I can't believe I'm watching gay sex right now. It's like, this is two men making love and this is what their situation is. And now you have a situation with his son and he has to explain that. Like, it was, so it was a part of the narrative that works and fit into that framework. And so for a show that was really trying to be inclusive of adding a multi-layered characters, I thought they did a really good job of adding that aspect of it and making it into the point where, like you said, it wasn't a thing. It was part of the whole thing in general.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to the what was the character's name? Is it Kimiko? Kimi?
Oh yeah. That aspect of it. I forgot actually.
The
The
Korean
nine-tailed fox, basically.
Nine-tailed fox, yeah.
There you go.
That was the one thing that the episode was well done when she's introduced, and they had hinted at her from the beginning, or at least halfway through. No, from the beginning, and the episode was well done and but there was something about it that, as a subplot, that then joined the larger arc that didn't connect for me. In the end, it felt more Deus Ex Machina, like than it did that this was something that played out naturally, or it had a real genuine purpose. I saw some of the, I get the aspect of it, which I really appreciated in terms of including multiple cultural and ethnic folklore, but I don't know if it worked out in the larger narrative arc as well as, because that's another reason why I was like, okay, this is like eight and a half out of 9 or out of 10, because it just didn't come together for me in the end.
I think
they didn't pay off her involvement in the in it's like it was a huge setup that worked really well, and when she shows up later on in Chicago, it's kind of like, oh snap, well, this is going to be interesting to see how they integrate her, and they kind of just didn't really, like they did but they didn't, and so it ends up being one of those things where you're like I said, it doesn't pay off her, and it doesn't pay off her introduction, and it doesn't pay off her later her involvement in that last episode, at least not the way that you would want to for how they set her up.
Yeah, she had come in with a plan or something in Chicago, like, oh, I know a way to stop the spell, or I know a way to defeat Christina. Then it would have made sense, but she just showed up, and then Atticus is like, oh, I don't want you no more. What we had wasn't real. What I got now is real. And he leaves.
It was basically like his side chick kind of came through, and he's like, girl, what you doing?
Exactly.
But I think that's the thing where I thought it was it was almost like a prequel episode. And it was like we didn't need it, but it was there. So it was cool. But like, if we would have took it out, it would have, if it would have took it out and then we just saw her come to Chicago to talk to him, to kind of pay off that whole who's he been talking to or whatever, then we would have been like, oh, okay, I wonder what that is. And if they showed this episode, they'd be like, oh, okay, or this was an extra or bonus or something like that. I think it would have worked better. But adding it into it and then kind of building it up as like, whoa, this is a nine-tailed fox, it's Korean, and then not, like you said, not really paying it off, even in the end, even though she's part of the solution or whatever. I just kind of fell flat because it was like, yo, you kind of made her a big part of this narrative, and then you kind of just let it kind of fizzle. And then when she shows up, it still kind of fizzled because it was on some just like side chicks type stuff. And then in the last episode, she's kind of, part of the gang or whatever, which is cool. But then still, like you said, it didn't really have that same oomph. Like, you're right. If she would have came through on some like, hey, yo, I have a plan. This is what we could do to stop her, blah, 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 blah. Then they'd be like, oh, this makes sense. Cool. But because he was just kind of there, it was almost like, oh crap, we forgot about her. What are we gonna do with her?
I think what would have worked nicely is if Christina or Christina's father pops up in Korea. I think it's Korean War, right? Yeah. So
Korean War.
If Christina's father popped up in Korea, and there's a connection between the priest who dumps the night-tailed fox demon into this girl, if there's a connection between the order that Christina's father belongs to and the Korean priest who does that would have made a ton of sense, and you can sort of bring it full circle by her killing off Christina. that would have made a ton of sense, and you don't need to explain much more than just Pops walking up on some, yo, so what's good? Hi. Okay, so we know each other? All right, cool. Narrative served. Now, and we move on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some
No,
purpose to the magic that was, because even still when they figure out that, oh, she can help, I'm still like,
How?
but how?
And why?
Her and Christina not having intercourse right now, like they not having sex, so how can she help?
Right. And so
facts.
the tendrils popping up outside of what we've normally seen as the way that her power usually exerts itself, it's kind of weird that she's just, oh, so you can do this at will now? And when did that happen?
Yeah. No, exactly. I think that's the part that was kind of weird. So it's like, it was almost like, it was, like I said, the episode itself, like him in Korea showing his backstory, that was actually super dope because it kind of shows some of the traumatic stuff. I like how they showed the people that were for communism, people that weren't, that whole situation. I like when the Ninetale actually hit him in the eyes, and she saw all the bullshit that he had already done. He killed her friend. He freaking did some crazy shit. Like, okay, but yeah, if like literally you took that episode out, the narrative would still fit, and there would be nothing. You're not really losing much.
No,
so,
you're not. I think you also, again, the Durex Machina, again, to explain that is when some aspect of the story comes out of nowhere to save the day, basically. And that was what it ultimately became. And, I think there was room for it to be something else, but then now in retrospect, when you see what it panned out to be, then you look at that episode and it's like, because I thought about rewatching that episode, then I was like, I'm not gonna do that, because it was what it ended up being was a little bit of a waste of screen time, where it could have been more devoted to moving some other things forward, or because in the end the narrative was moving fast, but at the same time a lot of things didn't really become apparent until that very last episode. These mechanisms and things that were going on. So, and how they fit in the larger arc. I would have rather had 2 episodes of Hippolyta cruising through the multiverse
For sure.
than that episode with the Nine-Tailed Fox in the end.
Nah, she could have just stayed in with Josephine Baker, just hung out. I've been fine with that.
Yeah, I would have been okay with that too.
But no, you're right. I think that was the part that I said, like, that, like, again, taking that full episode out, you could watch the whole series together and you'd be completely fine. And I think that shows that you didn't need that episode. It added a little bit, but in general, nothing crazy would have gone more than that.
No.
And I think the also the kind of the doing too much part of it comes back with, when they talk about when they kind of go through this whole Indiana Jones like situation, and then they go down into the freaking under the museum, and then there's water, and then there's a freaking ghost ship and skeletons, and then all of a sudden the chick comes to life. I'm like, oh shit, what's going on?
Pirates of the Caribbean,
I was like, yo, this is it's like, what's going on? And then like, then they take the indigenous chick back with her, and I was like, okay, that's weird. And then she was like a hermaphrodite. I'm like, all right, cool. And then all of a sudden, like, Montrose like kills her out of nowhere. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. That definitely was a what the hell moment.
So yeah, I think, like you said, that sometimes like they would do some crazy shit and it would work, and other times I'm like, ooh, I'm not sure if you guys really fully thought this part out. So where do you guys think it could go? Like, because like from my understanding, it was actually a solid like 1 season situation, and then as of now, it's not renewed for the 2nd season, but it hasn't been it's not like it hasn't got canceled, but it hasn't got renewed yet. Yeah. And then also too, I make, like D, you're way more versed in Lovecraftian lore, but where do you think it can go, and where sky's the limit type of situations? Like, what do you think they could do?
I think they've laid, in lieu of not having announced the 2nd season, and that it was looked at as sort of, okay, this is kind of a limited series TV movie type of ordeal as opposed to a series. I think they've kind of laid the groundwork for an anthology, but which again, beyond the, because I think they covered pretty much everything that's in the Lovecraft Country book as far
Mm.
as story. I looked that up, and the stories that are featured in that book were pretty much covered one way or the other. And there might be some. There's always in these stories some area that filmmakers and television producers are willing to pull out and make an entire series for. So there's that possibility that there's something there that they didn't use that they could expand it. But as far as the story for the characters right now, if they don't do anthology and reintroduce something new, I could see them trying to do something with the multiverse aspect. But then there's this I where I only say anthology because then they could continue to shuffle up the themes and the genres that they're working in. They could probably do that with a story about someone going through the multiverse, and it fits with Lovecraft's themes. But the other thing is that a lot of Lovecraft's things are about sanity and things like that, which you saw a lot of hinted at really early, and they kind of moved away from it being a question of real or not, or and told you that this stuff is happening. But so there's possibility, I think, in a few different directions. But my strong feeling is that they'll probably do anthology and just pick a different time period and expand on some of the lore that they established already.
I think that would be cool. I mean, honestly, I think the having some type of an anthology and maybe even following the family line through
Yeah,
that in
yeah,
different genres or
yeah,
different time periods, that would be fun. Like I would
That
love
could
to
work.
see this type of like I could love to see this type of situation set like in the 70s or freaking,
yeah,
maybe in the
In the
90s or
80s
something
or
like
90s.
that.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
like
yeah,
just as on some new shit, because I think that aspect of it, I think I think Black audiences are tired of the same, we're always talking about slavery or we're always talking about, the man in the 60s or blah, blah, blah.
And
So
rightly
yeah,
like
so. Yeah.
setting, yeah, and rightfully so. So yeah,
yeah,
setting some like Lovecraftian type shit in the middle of like crack 80s or fucking or
yeah,
the 90s or something like that, like around OJ, like that. It just that would be super fun and that would be different. That you don't necessarily see.
yeah,
And I like that the Jordan, and we'll give it to Jordan Peele that he kind of helped audiences that aren't Black realize that Black audiences like horror too,
Mm.
yeah, and
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 enjoy it.
yeah, and Misha Green, who obviously was the executive producer and creator of Lovecraft Country under Jordan Peele's company. She did a great job as coming from underground to Lovecraft Country, from a WGN serial drama to masterclass HBO. Like she did a good job in really bringing to life that possibility for the continuation of the mythology, because so much stuff was added in there. To your point about showing different Black stories, you had the Afrofuturism, you had the quest adventure, you had the monster story, monster in the woods story. You had just so many different. And I think the biggest one was the Afrofuturism and going to
Hmm.
the different space times in which these cosmic elements are playing subtle but big parts in the weavings and the goings of individuals. And so I think, like you said, that there's so much room even in there to and they left the door open. Maybe there's a story about Atticus's son. After he's written a book and things like something comes up, and maybe a new there wasn't all the Braithwaites are one, maybe a cousin survive. There's some room to play around that wouldn't make it so bad. But I think they would have to stretch it out so that wouldn't be the story in season 3. That would be somewhere like, oh, well, we've done some other things with some other characters, maybe in that line, maybe in something else, and then now we're coming back to the Atticus. What was it, the Freeman family or whatever, and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that like maybe even taking a I think American Horror Story does a good job of doing that, of telling different type of narratives and different, and like so I think if they followed that type of a blueprint, I think they could have a lot of fun, do some really cool stuff, and I think there's no shortage of really great Black actors that are out there doing some dope shit that doesn't get that much shine. So I can definitely see them, showcasing that as well. I think that was the other good thing too, that the veteran actors and the younger actors that people might not know about, like it helped, and you could see the casting on a whole was just done really, really, really well.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So everybody got to shine. So it was good to see that, and that people really were really, and then also just taking the people that like Journey Smollett, she had, she's been in the industry for a minute, even when she was a kid up until now. But it was cool to kind of see her acting chops from the full range of it, as opposed to usually the bit parts that it's not even bit parts, but like the kind of one note type of characters that she usually plays. So it was dope to see that.
Yeah, it's funny.
Let's see what she could do in the lead. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I just on the random caught the Harley Quinn movie.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, anybody could have played the role that Journey Smollett played, but it is funny to see the juxtaposition when she's given something that has a lot more meat on the bones, like a Lovecraft Country, versus playing Black Canary, which I'm just like, whose idea was it to make a Black woman Black Canary? But all right, fine. Like, because the character should be Black.
I just got that right now.
Yeah,
I'm just
but
kidding.
To your point, that's a good point about Journey and her journey as an actor. Like I see what I did right there.
Yeah, cut that.
Yeah,
but no, you're right. I think that's the aspect of it where the guy who plays Ticket is Jonathan Majors, right? I think that's correct.
Jonathan Majors,
yeah. And like and same with him. Like he's solid dude. He's been in a couple of things here and there, but like I thought he did a really dope job in this. Like he fucking put his foot in this. Like and I think it was good to see it, and that I hope Hollywood takes notice and starts to kind of lean in on that thing where letting Black or not even letting, but having Black creatives create stories, use the people that they want to use, and really have the helms of doing stuff can allow them to create some really dope shit. And I think that's another takeaway from this that I thought was on the positive tip that was dope.
Yeah, and I think not to trivialize their performances, but I think for them, you can see it in their faces, the actors channeling real emotion, because they are thinking about how they would feel in those situations, because those are situations that they could very well could have been in that period or find themselves in. I think about the moment where she's running out when it looks like the cops are gonna basically tick down. She's running out, and you can just see that's a lot of Black women, in that situation, running to try to defend a Black man from the police, and her not knowing, and deep down knowing she probably wouldn't make it, but that wasn't going to stop her. And I think that was you can see that in her performance. And again, not to trivialize how great they did, because they did a great job, but I think that emotion was driven by being able to identify with what those characters were enduring, at least on a small level.
Yeah, I agree.
No,
even the Tulsa episode is a prime example of what you're talking about. Like, it didn't take long for you as the viewer to become immersed in the in that setting, and you legit believe they were in 1921 Tulsa, Oklahoma. Like they make you believe it. And what I liked about that episode in particular was they didn't really like, how can I phrase this? You didn't walk away from that feeling like, oh, HBO just did Tulsa again. It was more like, oh no, they did it again. All right. Like they really expanded on, but from Watchmen to that, to Lovecraft Country, and in that episode, they expanded. It's two different perspectives on the same event.
And use two different
the
story told two different ways too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
And it just works. It just works really, really well. And the actors do, as Dee put it, the actors do a brilliant job of transporting you to that place and making you believe that they're going through all those things, fictional as it may be, making you believe all the emotions if they're going through. Letty running into the elder Freeman, who had the book of spells, Montrose realizing that that Tick was the guy who saved him when from the roving
that
mob.
part was dope.
It was just excellent. It was just excellent piece. Even the slow walk, like, people were complaining like, yo, Letty slow walking down the street in Tulsa, Oklahoma in the middle of the bombing, blah 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 blah. It was a little.
It's a visual metaphor, though.
Brilliant visual metaphor.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous. It was a gorgeous slow-mo shot. Like, just shut up. It was good. It was good for what they were trying to do. And you can't.
Yeah, I think that's the part where we get into we start to get in the weeds of things where it's like we can't enjoy it because we're just like, I could have been better. Da, 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 blah blah blah. It's like yes, it could have been better, but can you just like let's enjoy it, watch it, digest it, then we can talk about it. Kind of like when I watched Luke Cage, when I watched Luke Cage, when I was at work, we watched the first 2 episodes in the big screen, which was really cool. And I was laughing because we watched it, and then when I came back to work, everyone was like, hey, how'd you like Luke Cage? I was like, well, first of all, I'm black, so it was amazing. And they were just like, and I was like, okay, now that I got that out the way. All right. I thought, the writing wasn't that great, but the acting was kind of in, and it was fun. And I was laughing because I was like, yeah, as black creatives, we can critique our own shit. That's not a bad thing. But also we should at the very least enjoy it. I think that's the one part. We're too busy. Sometimes we get a little too quick to critique as opposed to just be like, yo, this was actually pretty dope. Mm-hmm. These are the things I didn't like about it. But overall, I like, and I think us got that a lot too, where I think people enjoyed Get Out so much that when they went to go see Us, they're kind of like, it was all right. As opposed to was it all right because you had this crazy expectations, or was it really just all right?
And I think Cam, shout out to Cam Squared. I think he put it perfectly. We were talking about something else, and he said something that I use as a sort of a catch-all when critiquing black art, and that is, you should absolutely, and D'Angelo, you and I have discussed this at length on a number of occasions for a number of things, but you shouldn't give it a pass because it's black. Like, it still needs to be good. It still needs to adhere to certain storytelling standards or break those rules in ways that in ways it needs to break those rules in ways that but it still needs to be good. And we can critique it if it's not up to snuff. Like, we're going to, especially in a world where we're post Black Panther, we're post Lovecraft Country, we're post the Watchmen series. Like, those are standout things that were done really, really, really well, and the production value is really high, and the writing is really good. And so we now have things that we can compare bad cinema and bad television against, to be like, well, as long as it's not those things that came before that were just really poorly executed, and you could tell it was some white executive who was like, it'd be great here, and instead of just letting us be us on screen. You know,
well, we can stop nitpicking right now because it's because of that what you just said. Like the
good point.
the looking at the talking about Letty slow walking. That's not a valid analysis or criticism, because the larger thing, and Cam and I discussed this a little bit before we on it. The larger thing that I took away from that particular depiction of Tulsa versus Watchmen's depiction. First of all, Watchmen's depiction at large was more aesthetic in that it showed you a little bit of it to set you on this particular narrative path in the cold open. This was an entire episode devoted to the Tulsa massacre, even to the moments that built up to it. From the perspective of the characters, and what you see more than anything, and what you didn't see as much in Watchmen, is what was stolen, both literally and metaphorically. From that community, and from and especially from the Black people who were driving that community and that economy. You see what was reaved and pillaged in that episode alone, and that is bigger even from the small moments. You see what was stolen and what was lost, and that creates an entirely different experience than what was done in Watchmen. But that you can't use a slow walk moment to negate all of that. Like, come on.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like I thought the depiction of Tulsa in Lovecraft Country was more menacing. Like,
yes.
Seeing them all in the house together, grabbing their guns, getting ready for these crazy white people, and then on some revolution type shit, and then moments later, the whole house is in flames and everyone's dying. You're like, wait, what? And then seeing how many people are out there, how everything was going on, or seeing Montrose and his dude chilling, and then his dude gets killed. And then, you start to see it. And even when Tick goes out to defend them, he's beating all these white dudes down. But then you see there's a couple women with them cheering them on as they were beating up these Black kids. And you're just, and it's like subtle, but you're like, fuck.
And tries to stop Tick when he's defending them, those same women. So yeah, there's
nuts, man.
There's all these nuances about
levels and layers
about
man.
that. And like you said, too much to the horror, and that is what Hitchcock would define as real suspense. Because guess what? What the real horror for us sitting in the audience, watching them strap up and all that stuff and go through their community, their daily routines, and seeing it vibrant, guess what we know? That's about to come to a very horrible end.
Right.
And they and nothing that they're about to do, even in that badass moment, is going to stop.
Makes a difference. Yep.
And makes a difference. That's real suspense right there, because we know more than the characters do. At least some of the characters, other than the time travelers, but we know more than those other characters who are just living their lives. So that creates a whole nother level of tension and horror in you, and that speaks to another usage of the genre that people don't think about.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, that tension and that just that almost like sense of dread is just one of those things where you're just like, we already know the ending of the story. Exactly. But now we're seeing, and I think, in a time, there hasn't been a movie made about Tulsa and all that kind of stuff. There's a couple documentaries and all that stuff. I'm not sure we necessarily need one, Black trauma and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. However, a whole movie on Tulsa and Black Wall Street that doesn't show the actual riot until the last 5 minutes would be freaking crazy, because you would see a full thriving civilization going on, all the ups and downs, it's like I said, it was a self-sustaining African-American town. Yeah. And in that last 5 to 10 minutes, that's when you see the actual burning about to happen. That would actually be it would be mirroring what I'm thinking more of a Fruitvale Station, where it's
or like Apocalypto
Apocalypto, same shit.
You didn't see the Spaniards come. You just see the boat, and what's about to take place, because
the story. And I think that the story is not the ending, the story is everything before
The
that.
journey,
And
yeah.
and that journey. And I think that's the thing. I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to Tulsa, when you start to really dig into it, you start to find out, they have their own banking system, and then they have this and that, and blah 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 blah. Like that whole thriving
How long the Black
civilization.
Dollar took before it left that area,
dude. And like, just something on that by itself it would be amazing for people to see and experience and grab a hold of, and then it would just be even heavier knowing how it ended. Like, I don't need to see an hour and a half of a freaking
people
murderous white people.
Yeah.
I don't need to see that, but I want to see how it got there. Like why did they have to go there and make their town, and how it became thriving and all that. Like, all that stuff is the most interesting part, because they the reason why Black Wall Street came about was much like the Jews. Like, white people was shutting them out of everything, so they got to make their own shit. So they're like, all right, well, we'll just make our own shit, and it turned out to be dope.
And I think even to that same concept, it could be dope. You could even show the planning of the massacre, and alongside of the showing the growth of the community, because that would build a lot of tension as well. And the obviously not seeing it, like you just said, has an even more profound effect, because we just saw a story about a journey of people thriving, of them actually enacting the so-called American dream, and then in knowing, we know it, like you said, we know how it ends. We know that was stolen from them, literally, but we rarely see that journey. So as you need an antagonistic force within the story, let's show them nefariously planning this thing, because obviously no one saw it coming in Greenwood. So
exactly. And I think that's even, again, that goes back to the the sad aspect of it, because in that era, people had their own guns and everything else, but they didn't expect to be invaded by a fucking bunch of white people to kill the whole town. Like,
it was aided by the U.S. government. Like, we can't forget
and
that.
So,
like,
and they deputized all those freaking the people. So I think that's going back to telling new stories and not highlighting Black trauma, which I actually agree with. A lot of people are saying I'm tired of trauma shows, and I don't watch slave movies. I just stopped watching them a long time ago. But starting to shine a light on aspects of Black America that doesn't really get to shine a light on. The fact that we don't have a freaking Cotton Club TV show in 2020 is still mind-boggling to me.
Or any series that's based in well, I won't talk about that.
That's a whole nother conversation.
We'll leave that out into the ether. But I understand exactly what you're saying, in terms of there are many, 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 many stories, not just even the stories of the mythos of the 20th century. There's lots of stories to be told. There's some stuff that we don't even know about, that's out there, that connects us even larger to, like, to the African continent, the Moors and things like that. There is a lot to you just have to be bold. I think the problem is that there's an opportunity now, because obviously, most of the studios are going to be coming out hurting from this pandemic, and going to be looking for fresh stuff. And I think the COVID is going to reshape the entire industry, whether people realize it or not, or they realize it, but in more ways than what we think. I predict that some of the things that were very popular before COVID will not be as popular after COVID, and that there's going to be a desire for new stuff, because we were getting somewhat of the same. And I'm being coy about it, but I'm speaking about things like superhero films and things like that. I don't want to see that stuff just disappear, but I think that stuff has clouded a certain it's clogged a little bit of the space. And so hopefully, once the industry does bounce back, there will be more more studios and more financial backers willing to take chance on new stories.
Yeah. That's and then we're talking about that too with this. Last episode in Table of Truth, we're talking about 80s action heroes, Sly and Arnold and Bruce Willis and Harrison Ford and stuff. And like a lot of those movies were like one-offs. It wasn't the full-on universe. There was like, some dude in an impossible situation and he figured it out and he rose above. That's the plot.
And that was what the sequels were, but they made money,
Yep. And so I think I think I think COVID's kind of put a pause on that superhero-ness, which is interesting. And so we'll see how it kind of shakes out. Cause like there's still a couple things in the can that still got to come out, like the Black Widow movie and a couple other things. But yeah, I'm curious to see that because I think, COVID kind of helped with the serialization of a lot of the people got to consume a lot of TV.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that before, like, what have you been watching this? That's again, we'll come back and we'll talk about what we've been watching over this COVID and what we're watching currently. But you're right. I think there's definitely a good time to try some new things and kind of figure out some stuff and see where that goes. But yeah, man, I like that. Good Lovecraft Country. Can't sing enough of his praises. I definitely enjoyed it. She was so much fun.
Yeah, and then a perfect example of what you just said. Something that was new and different and tried some old stuff and combined some new stuff.
Dude, my thing is, as I was telling other people, I was like, if we have to keep telling sci-fi, horror, and fantasy stories to teach white people about the racism, so be it.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of ways to do it, and I feel like recently we've seen some very clever ways of trying to have the conversation.
Yep. So be it. So if that happened, like someone said they watched the first episode and they were just like, yeah, it was weird. I was watching there and it was like some racism stuff. And I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. And then all of a sudden these monsters came and ate all the white people. Like, what? And they're like, did you know there was Sunset Town?
Oh, God,
is that a real thing? And then people use Beyonce's internet. And they were just like, wow, this is a real thing. And did you know that they're still around?
Yeah, no, like it's funny. I being the child of immigrants, I knew that. Like, how do you not know that? Being born here,
and that's dope though. I mean, it to me, it's like I think television and movies is always a good vehicle to teach people about stuff that they probably would have not have known before. And I think if, like I say, we have to use this as a vehicle to teach people about the stuff that's going on in our country, stuff that had been going on, that used to go on, that's still going on, like and we could do it in interesting ways and entertaining, that's all the better for it. I think it was a good thing. Yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up. You guys want to use some final words? Josh, you got a final word?
Star Trek Discovery is amazing. It is amazing. It has produced more tears in 4 episodes than most shows in its entire run.
It is great.
That's gonna be another episode, man. We talk about Discovery.
Sorry.
Yeah.
D, you got a final word?
Yeah, I would. I think this was a great conversation about Lovecraft Country. Just to wrap up, what I think the overall impression that it was really great. I enjoyed more than anything the Afrofuturism stuff. I love the multiverse jumping through space time and all that, and really the depiction of time in that in temporal mechanics, to borrow a Star Trek. Star Trek Voyager, often used more in Voyager than anything. I'm learning.
Seriously.
But yeah, I just enjoyed all that. And like you said, the more, if we can get more, because we need to see more than that, more of that, that it shouldn't be that just all our stories are reserved to just the stuff that's the past or our trauma or, the 20th century us or even the 21st century us. Like, there's a lot of things, that genres and stories that we can exist in too, because it's all just human narratives being told using some form of hyperbole. So glad for Lovecraft Country because and as an extension of Watchmen, but in a different way, because it's just continuing to open up the doors for what I love, which is sci-fi, dark fantasy, not necessarily dark, but fantasy in general. So
yeah, man. I think like that's I would kind of echo that. Like, we're all kind of singing the praises of Lovecraft Country, but like in general, I liked that something like this exists to inspire other people to do things that are even better, take more chances, take more risks, genre bend. Like, I personally hate time travel. I blame this on X-Men. X-Men has soured me on time travel all the time.
I hate it too.
But they did a good job with it, and it was done in a way that was different that I enjoyed. And I like I said, I like the mishmashing of the different genres, the mythologies, and like I like that you had to Google stuff after you watched the show.
yeah, exactly.
Like that was cool. I like that you, as the audience member, you're like, wait, that can't be true. Is it true? Oh shit, it is true. Like, wait, what's the significance of this? And people, the conversation about the show was good. And for me, I'm not into the weekly serial stuff as much as I used to be, but the few shows that I do show up for weekly are ones that I enjoy this for. Like, Discovery is another one, Black People in Space, and it's not weird. It's freaking cool.
Yeah.
And then, Lovecraft Country, same thing. Like, the Afrofuturism, that shit came out of nowhere, and you're like, okay, cool. Like, you didn't feel like it was it didn't feel like you got taken out of the narrative.
Yeah,
you were just like, I'm with it.
You see it, and you're just like, yo, I rock with that.
Yep, 100%. And I think I need more of that, where it's like, it's not weird to have Black people in space and doing time travel stuff. It's like, this is just it's part of the narrative, and it works. And shows like this help that kind of get that going along. And so I think they did a really good job of just having fun. And which makes it good, because when you start to see something like this, now you're kind of like, okay, what would you do better? And then you go ahead and do that. And so I think this, you need something like this to kind of to start that conversation. And just like you needed the Get Out, and that's just like you needed, a lot of the other shows are starting to come up. And so I'm glad that we have these types of shows to inspire people to make other shows that'll be better, and it'll be in different genres and have more fun. Like, we get we start making Black vampire movies. That'll be a whole nother situation.
Oh, what you talking about, man? You ain't never heard of the classic Vampire in Brooklyn? Like, what do you mean? Blackula?
Or actually, what's what is the Charleston Heston one with the albino Black vampire? Oh man, which one was that? It's not Blackula. It was like in the future. Damn it,
I know. Is it the Omega
Dracula
Man?
3000?
Yes, Omega Man.
The Omega Man, which is what I Am Legend is loosely based on.
Yes. Yeah. But you're right. But yeah, that I think, again, that there's one of those things where, Black people like all genres, just like regular people. It's like one comedian was like,
That's crazy,
hey,
Cam.
what type of people? I was like, what type of people like chicken? And everyone in the audience goes, Black people. And he's like, no, racist, everyone. And it's just the same with genres, man. Like, we all like all these type of genres, sci-fi, fantasy, this, that, and so I am happy to see stuff like this get made, and I'm glad that it will definitely inspire other creatives to start to make that leap into shooting a shot to kind of get something different too. So that to me was like will be the lasting legacy for Lovecraft, whether it gets a second season or not. Like, it sparked that conversation where people are just like, oh shit, I guess we can make stuff like this. So it's dope. It was really, really dope. And I implore people to go watch it if you haven't, or, and let us know if what you thought about it too. But yeah, we had it was good, man. I'm glad I enjoyed the whole ride all the way through.
Yeah,
agreed.
It was satisfying to the very end.
Yes, sir. But, all right. We'll be back next time. We'll talk Mando. We'll talk some Discovery. We'll talk some comic books that are Black creators that you should check out. But until then, this is the Table of Truth, and we out.